Hey man, back at it again for more content. My goal is to hit 100 subscribers by the end of June, so I would greatly appreciate it if y'all click on the subscribe button on the right hand corner. I would greatly appreciate it, and also click on the notification bell so y'all don't miss a video. So today's video, we're going to talk about NBA history. The league has been established in 1946, and for 76 years, we have seen once of a lifetime talent unfold beneath our eyes. Players like Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Kareem, Magic, Bird, MJ, and now none other than LeBron James. All of these players are constantly remembered for their entertaining prowess and iconic moments that will forever define their careers. However, there is one player that has constantly been overlooked and has been more accomplished than the majority of the players who are Hall of Famers, such as Tracy McGrady. It amazed us with his play throughout his career, but when talk about accolades, it's a different story. And the player that we're talking about had a much better career than the likes of Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing, and Karl Malone. Note that this player won championships while being in the same level as these guys I mentioned. And that guy is Moses Malone. Malone, in my opinion, is the most forgotten NBA legend ever. And I should have put him in my top 5 underrated players of all time list. If y'all want to watch that, then here's the link on the top right corner. Go check it out. But anyways, guys, Malone is the most forgotten player of all time, and here's why. Stay tuned.
I paid my dues, now I'm a made man. I caught my fade, now I'm a made man. You never see me again. I got the juice, now I'm a made man.
Moses Malone is one of the best centers of all time, a top 12 center at least, at most top 10. This man really revolutionized and pioneered the modern day center. Well, when you talk about today's centers, they can shoot all that, but it's not really like that. He was really the first all-around center. A player that can do his thing on the post, but he can pass, rebound. In fact, he's the greatest offensive rebounder of all time, grabbing a staggering 5 offensive rebounds per game for his career. And one time, he once averaged an insane 7 rebounds per game in the 78-79 season. He was the Draymond Green before Draymond Green, but a much better offensive player and a better shot blocker. He was also undersized for a center, standing at 6'10". That's undersized, especially when you're playing in a league in the 1970s where teams are building championship contenders around 7-foot centers. But for Malone's case, he was quicker than most centers and he is sneaky athletic. He wasn't the most athletic center in the league, but he was by far the most skilled post-up players of his era. He also can dribble better than most centers too. So judging all the attributes Malone has possessed, that automatically makes him very unique. Do you know that he was the first player to be drafted out of high school? Well, the ABA, the American Basketball Association. As a 19-year-old, he averaged 19 points, 15 rebounds, 1 assist at 57% shooting from the field. For a 19-year-old, that is very impressive to average 19 points on 57% shooting and also grabbing 15 rebounds, given an era where the league average is 47% shooting from the field, and Malone is shooting 10% above league average, and he's almost led the league in rebounding too. That is very impressive. He made the All-Star team and made it to the playoffs with a losing record, and will lose 6 games by the Denver Nuggets. In this series, he averaged 23 points on 62% shooting. He was the best player as a rookie by far, and then the next season, he did regress, and that was also the year that the ABA and NBA merged in 1976. Malone landed with the Buffalo Bills, Braves, and traded after 2 games, which is a terrible mistake by the Braves. For those who don't know, the Braves will later be the Clippers, because they were once called the San Diego Clippers in the 1978 season. For 5 seasons, they relocated to Los Angeles after 5 seasons of which they never made it to the playoffs. They had a player named Bob McAdoo, who's by far the best player, one of the best players in Clippers Braves franchise history, because Clippers and Braves are literally the same franchise. So anyways, McAdoo averaged 30 points on nearly 50% shooting for 3 seasons and won MVP in 1975. The 1976 season, he led his team to the playoffs as the 5th seed. They traded away a 21-year-old Malone in return for 2 first-round picks, one of which is some guy named Wesley Cox, who's really a bag of condoms, averaged 5 points and was out of the league for 2 seasons. And the next pick, they were later traded to the Knicks, and the Knicks select Michael Ray Richardson, who's one of the better point guards of the 70s. That move was an absolute travesty, and had they kept him, they would have potentially won a championship at Buffalo, because McAdoo was really the best player not only on the team, but the second best player behind Kareem. But we just have to reap the animosity. So Malone spent his prime years at Houston, and in his entire stint, he averaged 24 points and the same 15 rebounds and 2 assists on 51% shooting. He made the All-Star team every year in his entire stint in Houston and won 3 MVPs. His best season was in the 1982 season, at which he averaged 31 points, 15 rebounds, 2 assists on 52% shooting. 5 of the seasons with the Rockets, they made it to the playoffs, but they only won around 40 to 49 games. But the season before 1982, the 81 season, they barely made it to the playoffs with a 40-42 record. Surprisingly, they made it all the way to the finals because of Malone's superb play in the playoffs. Malone averaged 27 points, 15 rebounds, 2 assists on 47% shooting in the entire playoffs. He beat in his prime Kareem and a rookie Magic Johnson. By the way, that team was the defending champions in 1980, the year prior, in a 3-game series in the first round. Malone in that series averaged a staggering 31 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 assists on 51% shooting. This man was incredible in that series. He single-handedly beat Kareem and Magic, in his prime Kareem and Magic, and who were the defending champions. Like, it's really crazy how people are overlooking that playoff series. Then against the Spurs, who won 52 games with an elite scorer in George Gervin. He had arguably his best series, at which he averaged 28 points, 12 rebounds, and 2 assists on 51% shooting. They beat them in 6 games, and in the West Finals, they faced the Kansas City Kings, who's actually the Sacramento Kings, but Malone lately been the same player following the series at which they beat the Spurs. They knocked them out in 5 games, and they made it to the finals. Malone literally carried that team to the finals, but they faced a stacked Celtics team with Larry Bird, Robert Parrish, and Kevin McHale. And you also add in players like Cedric Maxwell, Tiny Archibald. There's no way the Rockets, let alone Malone and Calvin Murphy, beat that team, despite Malone underperforming in the finals with 23 points on 40% shooting. Despite that finals loss, Malone led the Rockets to one of the most underrated Cinderella playoff runs, despite not winning a finals in league history. 6th seed of the West, and they didn't even allow a game 7 in the entire playoffs, which is very impressive. Although Harden may go down as one of the best scorers of all time, and you can make the case that he is the best scorer of his generation, but the thing that separates Harden from the likes of Hakeem and Malone is that they have MVP season and actually been the catalyst to their playoff runs. The only difference between Hakeem and Malone is that Hakeem won in Houston and has played more seasons with them. The season I mentioned before, he had an MVP season, and in turn led him to more wins, but they lost in the first round against the superior Seattle Supersonics. Malone didn't have any help in that series. The second best player was an old Elvin Hayes and Calvin Murphy, a second option behind Malone. He didn't even start in 3 games. He only played a total of 57 minutes, and in those minutes, he only averaged 6 points per game. At this point of his career, he won 3 MVPs, but he didn't win any championships, which led to narratives saying that his play style has been a detriment to the team. He's not a winner. He plays to put up stats, not to win games. Moses knew that he can't win in Houston, so he decides to leave his talents in free agencies and go sign with the Sixers. Now, the Sixers, led by Dr. J, made the finals in '82, but they fell to the Lakers. This was the early years of the Showtime Lakers with Magic and Kareem, and all they had, and they had Bob McAdoo too in that team. So the Sixers didn't have enough talent to really beat that Lakers that year, and they were good enough to compete with them, but their talent was just not up to par with them. Surprisingly enough, they wind up getting a in his prime Malone, who just had a season where he won MVP prior to the 83 season. Them boys were incredible, winning 65 games. They were ranked top 5 in offense and top 5 in defense. They were one of the first super teams in the NBA because the first ever super team were the Lakers of Jerry West, Wilt Chamberlain, and Elgin Baylor. They formed the first actual super team, but the Malone and Irving tandem were the first super team that actually won, let alone dominate in the season. Although Malone's stats went down, I mean, it should go down because he's playing with the likes of Julius Irving and Maurice Cheeks. He is sacrificing his number for the good of his team. And the highlight of the season is that they had one of the greatest playoff runs of all time. They went 12-1 in the playoffs, and the only loss they had was against the second-seeded Milwaukee Bucks with Sidney Moncrief and Marquise Johnson. They lost in just 6 points. The Bucks were the only team that can really challenge the Sixers, as during this time they had one of the best defenses in the league. And looking at the series alone, the games were close. The Sixers won by only 6 points in average, and some of the games they only won by 2 points. But the finals is what sets them apart from the other series the Sixers competed in. As the Sixers not only beat the Lakers, they fucking clapped the Lakers out of the gym. They swept the Lakers in sweeping fashion, and looking at the playoff games Moses Malone played, including the final series at which he averaged 26 points, 18 rebounds, and 2 assists on 51% shooting, he outplayed both Magic and Kareem again. He was the best player on the court. He led the series in scoring and rebounding, and he was solid in the defensive end. Throughout his playoff career, he has shown up in every playoff game. His stats are relatively the same looking at both the regular season and the playoffs, but he still has shown up in the brightest lights and managed to be as good as he was in the regular season. Capping off with a championship and a finals MVP, that cemented him as an instant NBA legend. He will continue to produce all-star numbers in the next 3 seasons, and the team's records over time gotten worse because of age, Dr. J getting old, and he will eventually retire in the 1987 season. The Sixers will continue to be competitive, but they lost in the first and second rounds in the next 3 seasons. Well, following the 1987 season because they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. And then his tenure with the Bullets. He made them competitive, and then in Atlanta. He was still above average, but he was in his twilight years of his career, and eventually he played with the Bucks, he played with the Spurs, he even reunited with the team that he won a championship with in the 76ers. This is before he played with the Spurs, as he was retired with the Spurs in 1995. One thing about Malone's career is that he's one of the most durable centers in history, as in his prime, he never played less than 70 games, and mind you that this was before he was past his prime. His durability is up there with Wilt and Kareem, and looking at the playoff career, he never choked, let alone underperformed significantly. Disregarding the last playoff series he played at which he averaged just 4 points, but not regarding that, his longevity and his consistency rivals Shaq and Hakeem. And most importantly, he has revolutionized the center position. He managed to be elite for such a long time despite him being undersized as a center, and there are many great undersized centers, for example Wes Unseld, God rest his soul. But Malone really popularized that notion that you can still be elite despite your size, and he played bigger than his size and had an all-around game. He can score from the post, he can shoot, dribble better than most big men. He's one of the most complete centers in NBA history. So Malone is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's a 13-time All-Star, 1-time champ with 1 Finals MVP, one of the greatest rebounders, if not the greatest offensive rebounder of all time. Revolutionized the center position forever, and by far, I'ma say it again, the most forgotten legend of all time. Thank you for watching my video. If you really love football and basketball, then click on the subscribe button so that way y'all stay tuned for more NBA and NFL content. And make sure y'all click on the notification bell so that way y'all don't miss any of my videos. And that always, guys, this is the A-Man Show, signing out.